Cosmic Conversations. I'm your host, Sheila Seppi, and I want to thank you so much for joining us here in our Zoom room or on YouTube, Facebook, whether you're with us on any of our Conscious Awakening Network platforms with Roku, Amazon, or Apple TV. Thank you so much for being here with us tonight. I do appreciate it. Tonight, we have a special guest, and that is Dan Harary. Now, Dan is the author of a new science fiction novel entitled After They Came. And he is convinced that his father knew all about UFOs. And this book was released by Genesis Book Publishing. After They Came blends historical UFO lore and data with a truly unique premise. Now, Dan describes this book, and I absolutely love this, as a cross between The Day the Earth Stood Still and It's a Wonderful Life. So I cannot wait to hear about your book, Dan. Now, Dan is also a noted Hollywood publicist and is the owner of the Ashbury PR agency in Beverly Hills, California. I could go on and on about Dan. And Dan, I would love for you to share with us a little bit more of your personal history. So I'd like to go ahead and to bring you on up. I'm going to spotlight you, and thank you so much for being here.
Oh boy, what an honor this is. This is almost frightening. How are you? Thank you for having me. It's very sweet. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Well, I can't wait to hear more about you and your book. So I'm going to turn it over to you.
Okay, sure. So I'll give you an overview of who I am and how this book came into being, which is really quite a remarkable story. My name is Dan Harary. I live in Beverly Hills, California. I grew up near Asbury Park, New Jersey, along the New Jersey shoreline. And Asbury Park is famous now because Bruce Springsteen really got discovered there earlier in his career. And believe it or not, when I had long hair and I was in high school, I used to work at a rock concert hall in Asbury Park. And I worked with Bruce Springsteen in 1973 before he was famous. And in fact, Clarence, his sax player, asked me and my best friend if we wanted to go on the road with Bruce and be their roadies. And we said, no, we have to go to college. We go, sorry, Clarence, we can't go on the road with Bruce Springsteen. We have to go to college. So anyway, that's a funny little side story. I worked with a lot of very famous rock bands when I was a teenager in the 70s in Asbury Park. I then went to Boston University. I studied communications. And when I was there, the famous radio DJ Howard Stern was in my school at the same time. He was 2 years ahead of me. And I met him many years later, and we talked about Boston University. And after college, I worked briefly in Manhattan at Columbia Pictures, a movie studio in New York. And I worked with Brooke Shields when she was 15 years old. She did a movie there called The Blue Lagoon, which some of you may remember. And I was one of the publicists in 1980 in New York for Brooke Shields with The Blue Lagoon. But then I had friends who lived in LA. And working in Manhattan, if any of you have ever worked in Manhattan, it's really hard because of the traffic and the noise and the cars and the buildings and the weather. And I had friends in LA on Venice Beach who invited me to come visit them in 1980. So I said to my father, Dad, should I go visit? He goes, don't go visit. Why don't you just go move to Los Angeles? And I said, oh, okay. And I did. And I was 24. I didn't know where LA was, literally didn't know where LA was on a map. I had to get a map of the United States. This is in 1980, I'm 24. I had to look up where was Los Angeles on a map. I had never been further than New Jersey, New York, or Boston. So I came to LA in the fall of 80, and I slept on my friend's couch for a year. I was penniless for a year. I had odd jobs at different companies. I was living on peanut butter and crackers. I would write poetry during the afternoons on Venice Beach and smoke a joint, take a nap. And I was poor, but you know what, Sheila? It might have been the most fun period of my entire life. Looking back, I had so much fun then because I was free of all obligations.
That's awesome.
My only obligation at that point was to stay alive, literally was to just eat food and stay alive. Um, Early in 82, I got a job at the American Film Institute, which is a very famous film college in Hollywood. And then from there, believe it or not, my next job was at the Playboy TV channel. I was the first publicist for the Playboy channel, which was really funny because I just gotten married. So I got married to a very lovely lady, and then I was meeting all these Playboy centerfold girls for the next 3 years. And I was friends with a lot of them, and it was very incongruous. After that job, I worked at Columbia Pictures Television, major movie studio in Hollywood. And there I, see Clint Eastwood and Madonna and Barbara Streisand and Richard Dreyfuss. And, I used to have lunch with Mickey Dolenz from the Monkees. He used to be a director there, and he was my childhood hero when I was a kid, because I've been playing drums since 1966, because Mickey Dolenz came on with the Monkees. You could probably see my drum set behind me, the electronic drum. So I was friends with Mickey in the 80s. After that job, I then worked for two very well-known entertainment PR companies for 10 years total. I was Jay Leno's publicist when he got The Tonight Show. And I used to hang out with Jay Leno backstage at The Tonight Show, and he'd be in his underwear, and we'd be working on a PR campaign. He got the nicest guy in the world. And I saw him even recently at a grocery store. He's still nice, very nice. When I turned 40 in 1996, I had an epiphany. And this is actually a true story. I was at a meeting with my boss in 1996. I just turned 40. And my boss was not a nice character, to say the least. He was a very mean person. So I'm with my boss and some clients. And we are at a very fancy hotel in Beverly Hills. And there's a chandelier directly above our heads. And as I'm in my 8th year of working with this guy who I truly disliked, Sheila, you may or may not believe this, but as I was in this meeting, the chandelier spoke unto me, and the chandelier said to me, Dan, start your own business. I swear on my daughter's life, that's a true story. I looked up at the chandelier. I looked up at the chandelier and said, well, really? God, or whoever that was, Dan, start your own business. It's like I just said it to you just then. So I got up from that meeting. I said to my boss, I said, hey, I'm sorry. I just remembered something. I got up, I left the meeting. I started a business and I made $1 million in the next year. So whatever, I'm very grateful to whatever that voice was in the chandelier, because it changed my life in every possible way. So my company is now 26 years old, the Asbury PR Agency. I represent people who work in front of and behind the cameras in movies and TV shows, musicians, people who act in live theater and plays. I've handled authors, I've handled lawyers, I've handled a lot of TV production people. And more recently, I've been representing some very famous LA restaurants. I represent the two most famous restaurants in Los Angeles at the moment. One is called Musso and Frank. It's the most famous restaurant in Hollywood. They're 104 years old. And El Cholo, which is the most famous Mexican restaurant in LA, and they're 100 years old. So in my 40-year PR career, I've gone from Hugh Hefner to Lassie to Jay Leno to Mexican food and to Mickey and the Monkey. I mean, Jerry Seinfeld and Bruce. And I mean, I've just worked or met so many countless people in the last decades of life. Last year, I became a first-time author. My first book is called Flirting with Fame. Flirting with Fame. It's on Amazon. It came out last summer. And it recalls the history of my show business career, all the celebrities I've met or worked with. And there's a lot of really wonderful photos, like in the book, like there's a picture of me with my mother and Mel Brooks. Me, my mother, and Mel Brooks. We met at a play. I introduced them, and it turns out my mother and Mel Brooks went to the same high school. So the picture of me, my mother, and Mel Brooks, it looks like I'm with my parents. It's one of my favorite photos. So if any of you are interested in the Hollywood, behind the scenes at Hollywood, check out my book, Flirting with Fame, on Amazon. I got a lot of press all over the world with that book last year. So now we come to my new book, which I just happen to have right here. after they came. So this book gave life to itself, okay? I'll tell you the chronology of this book. In 1970, I was 14 years old, living with my parents and my brothers in suburban New Jersey. And one day my dad drove me home from school. It was the afternoon. It was about 4 o'clock in the afternoon. The sun was still out. Dad drove me home from school. We're in his car. I'm 14. And as we're driving down our road to go home, an enormous silver V, like the letter V, like Victor, flying saucer, craft, it was a craft, I imagine, was directly above my father's car. And it was the size of maybe 4 school buses and maybe 200-300 feet. It was fairly low and silent, and it just hovered over my father's car, okay? So I'm going, Dad, there's a UFO. Dad, stop the car. There's a UFO. I'm screaming and jumping up and down. My father and I get out of the car. We go to the front of the car outside. We look straight up. Sheila, there's this enormous V like Victor over our heads. So I am so excited. I'm a kid. I'm jumping up and down. My father looked at that craft like he was looking at a head of lettuce at the supermarket. It almost looked like he was bored when he saw it. No expression, not fear, not excitement, not interest, no expression on my father's face whatsoever. Then he turned to me, he winked. My father winked at me and said, Danny, let's go home. We got back in the car, we went home. I called on the kitchen phone. This is a rotary phone we had in 1970. And I called the local newspaper, the Asbury Park Press. I called the paper and I said, my name is Danny. I'm 14. I just saw a UFO with my dad. And it was big and silver and looked like a V. And the lady goes, young man, I can't talk to you now. We're getting hundreds of calls about this right now. I can't talk to you. I'm sorry, I have to let you go. Nothing ever ran in the newspaper the next 3 days. I looked, nothing, no story ever ran. Now, this was so incongruous for a suburban New Jersey neighborhood of Jews and Italians. I mean, everyone on my street was Jewish or Italian. It was like one of the pyramids of Egypt flew over my name. It made absolutely no sense whatsoever. Okay, that's part one of this story of this book, 1970. Now, this is very interesting. I forgot that story for 47 years. I've completely forgot that story had happened for 47 years. Not once did I remember that story, okay? Now we cut to 2017, 47 years later. My dad passed away. I was very sad. My father and I and my 2 brothers were extremely close. He was a great guy. He died. A few days after he died, I went to a deli in West LA to get a pastrami sandwich. I'm there by myself, ordered my sandwich, and I'm just sitting there thinking about my dad. And as I'm sitting at the table, something from heaven or from this whatever light from above, something came from the universe into my brain like a movie. And I swear to you, I saw the whole UFO sighting in my brain as a movie with me and my dad from 1970. I saw it happen. And I saw that my dad had no expression on his face. I remembered that he winked at me and the whole sighting came back. Now, here's what's very interesting about all of that. My father worked for the US Army for 45 years as a civilian. He was stationed at Fort Monmouth, New Jersey. It was an Army fort, top secret Army fort. He had top secret clearance. He was an electronics engineer. And everything my dad did, he designed and gave contracts for production for missiles and radar systems and drones for 45 years. He told me once he was one of the earliest people to invent drones. So everything my dad did for the government for 45 years flew in the sky and was advanced technology in the sky that flew around the world. Okay, let's just put it that way. When this movie was beamed into my brain from heaven, and I saw it, I realized, and I got a chill, and I still have a chill to this day, that when my dad saw that craft with me, the way he looked at it, Sheila, it was like he knew what it was. I'm telling you, as God is my witness, my gut feeling, my dad knew what that was because he had no expression. And then he winked at me, and that was the key. He winked and said, let's go home. The wink was like, sorry, kid, I can't tell you. I know what that is. I can't tell you. So all of that happened, and then I got my pastrami sandwich. So I'm like, wow, what a profound moment that was right after he died. That came back to me. So I got a pen from my waiter at the deli, and there's a paper placemat on the table. And I wrote down to myself, write a book, lead character finds out that his late father knew about UFOs. And then I wrote capital A, capital T, capital C, those three letters. And then I took the pen away and I looked, and I had no idea what ATC was. I really didn't know what that was. And I looked at it for a while, and I came up with the title of my book, After They Came. So the genesis of that book was born in a deli 3 days after my father passed away. I then came home and I wrote it for the next 8 months, every single day for the next 8 months. And I'll tell you the premise of the book. I created a lead character based on my life as though as though all the good things that have happened in my life had not happened. So it was like the opposite of my life. I created this guy who is turning 70 years old. He lives in Los Angeles. He owns a business that failed. His children don't speak to him. His first wife was killed in a car accident. His second wife divorced him. He has no friends, and he hates his life. His life sucks. He just wants his life to be over. So on his 70th birthday, he gets a big bottle of vodka, a ton of sleeping pills. He goes out to Malibu, parks his car, takes off his clothes. He drinks all the vodka. He takes all these pills, and he jumps into the Pacific Ocean, and he starts to swim out to sea. All he wants to do is drown and die. That's his goal on his birthday, is to die. As he's drowning, an enormous UFO comes up out of the Pacific Ocean, right where he was, right above him, beams him up, saves his life, and then this craft slowly hovers over all of Los Angeles from, if you know LA, from Malibu through West LA, through Mid Wilshire, all the way to Dodger Stadium. This enormous craft stops at Dodger Stadium. And by the time it gets to Dodger Stadium, there's police cars and ambulances, fire trucks, military vehicles, cameras, media, microphones. Everyone has gathered because it took about 20 minutes for it to get to Dodger Stadium. At Dodger Stadium, the craft opens, and two beautiful tall white Nordic aliens from Pleiades, of all places, come down slowly, beautiful, 7 foot tall, male and female, long silver white hair, blue eyes, pale skin, and white gleaming robes, and they just float down. Then they beam down this naked guy who was drowning a few minutes earlier. They beam him in a yellow light above second base in the air, and he's floating around. So he's like a floppy fish. He's half awake, half asleep. He's naked. He just drowned, but he came back to him. And the aliens say, people of Earth, we're here to help you. We decided now was the time for us to reveal ourselves to you. We love mankind. We've been on Earth for tens of thousands of years monitoring your progress. Don't be afraid of us. And we are here to help you cure your insolvable problems. But the one caveat is, we will only work through this man. Now, this floppy dead guy who's floating around naked. We will only work through him. He will be our conduit to mankind. We have a relationship with this guy, and he's very important to us. So don't mess around with this guy. Treat him well. We'll be back in a month. So then the naked guy goes down to second base. They get up, and the craft takes off and leaves. And then all of the cameras and police and military with rifles, and everybody comes to this guy. He looks up. He's like, what? What's happening? He has no idea. He doesn't have the slightest clue what just happened. It was the remarkable thing that ever happened to a human on the planet Earth ever. And he's like, what? So then from there, the book, they take him to the White House to meet the president. I set the book in the year 2033, so 10 years from now. In my book, I based the president on Oprah Winfrey. And some of you might remember when I started writing this book, it was 2017. And that year, there was a rumor that Oprah Winfrey was considering running for president. So I was thinking, wow, what an interesting president Oprah Winfrey would make, right? So in my book, I have a 75-year-old African-American woman who's based on Oprah Winfrey. She's the president of the United States in my book. So this guy, Jonathan, meets the president, and the president goes, Jonathan, who are you? What on earth just happened? Who are these aliens? How did this happen? What's going on? And he goes, Madam President, I don't have the slightest idea what the last 12 hours of my life, I don't have the slightest idea what just happened to me. I have no clue. I couldn't tell you. And all the military people are questioning him, like, what, you know, are you in cahoots with the Russians? And, you know, are you here to subvert the American government? He's like, what? He goes, I just tried to drown myself. I just wanted to be dead. He goes, the fact that I'm in the White House instead of dead right now is unbelievable to me. It makes no sense. So the big picture is the president puts this guy up at the United Nations. She reunites him with his two estranged children. And they put together what they call Team Tuckerman. His name is Jonathan Tuckerman, so Team Tuckerman. And they come up with a list of the greatest hits of mankind's problems. They write it on a whiteboard, the biggest problems that we humans are facing right now. They write it on a list. And once a month, this enormous craft comes to the United Nations building. Jonathan goes on board, meets with his alien friends, and over the course of a year, the first thing they do is eliminate all nuclear weapons on the Earth. They eliminate every nuclear weapon on the Earth. That's the first thing that they do. And then over the course of the year, they end global famine. They provide clean water. They end all medical and psychological problems. They eliminate guns. They eliminate hatred. You'd have to read the book to see how they do these things, but they get rid of hatred. They end sexual and racial discrimination. Every month for a year, they do one remarkable thing because they have unbelievable technology. They also, this was my favorite one, Sheila. They reverse climate change. How about that? That's pretty good, right? Okay, so at the end of the year, all these things have happened. This guy who was 70 and dead on his birthday, 1 year later, he's the most famous man in the world. His nickname is the Hero of Earth, and he wins the Nobel Peace Prize on his 71st birthday. So in the course of 1 year, he's drowning, and then a year later, he's the most important man on the planet. That's the first third of my book. The second third is when he discovers, so during the first year, he's just taking for granted that he's friends with the aliens. The second third of the next year, people go, hey, Jonathan, you know, why did they pick you out of 8 billion people on the Earth? Why did these remarkable, beautiful aliens from Pleiades, why did they pick you to be their conduit on Earth? And he goes, you know what? That's a great question. I probably should have asked them that. So the second year of the 3 years in the book, he asks them, and they give him this little device like a shoebox, and it's a home movie theater. And apparently God records all human beings as though they're all being shot in home movies. So the aliens give him a box by which he can watch his parents from 70 years earlier. And it turns out that his father and mother saved the life of a baby alien 70 years earlier when it crash landed on Earth. So because of that kindness in the present day, that's why these aliens saved him from drowning. It was a payback. And he also finds out his dad was a scientist for the Army. His dad invented missiles and radars. And his dad was a UFO expert and researcher. So that's how I wove in my own dad's, what I believe my dad may have been involved with, into the storyline of this book. And then the third part, the third is the lead character visits his mother on her deathbed. She dies on her 98th birthday. But before she dies, she says to him, "You have a twin sister." And he goes, "No, Mom, I don't have a twin sister." She goes, "No, you have a twin sister. And I know she's alive." And she says, "Swear to me before I die. Swear to me that you will find your twin sister before I die." And he goes, "Okay, Mom, I promise." So then the mother dies. And then the last third of the book, he and his family search around the world for his long lost twin sister. And when you find out who the long lost twin sister is, that's the part that people have called me and said, "Dad, you blew my mind. It's a plot twist." Everyone was amazed at who his twin sister. So that's the big picture of the book. And that's how it came to be, from my waiting for my pastrami sandwich, you know.
Well, I think that is awesome. And, Dan, did you ever get a chance to have a conversation with your dad about what the two of you witnessed when you were 14?
That's such a great question, Sheila. And so many people have asked me that. And the truth is, no, not at all. And I'll tell you why. After No Story ran in the paper, it's 14, was a drummer in bands. And rock and roll was my life. My friends and I had a little rock and roll band, and we used to play all the dances and all the parties. And look at the pretty girls. And this is in 70s when hot pants. Boy, I remember when hot pants came along. And I'd be looking at the pretty girls in the hot pants. I was too shy to talk to them, of course. So my focus went to drums and my bands and girls in hot pants. And I never, ever did. But Sheila, I never remembered it. I didn't remember that. And later, like a week later, it was gone. That whole major experience in my life went away. Over the years, I did ask my dad, "Hey, Dad, do you believe in UFOs?" "No, there's no UFOs. It's nonsense." But he would turn away and like chuckle. And my dad was top secret. He never. I asked my mother if he ever talked about UFOs. She did say an interesting story. After he died, I heard this story for the first time. He said when he started his work at the fort, early on, they took him down into the vaults and they showed him something top secret. And they told him, "You can never tell anyone what you saw here today as long as you live." So when he got home, my mother said he was pale and nervous. And she said, "What's wrong, honey?" And he said, "I saw something today I can never talk to you about, or anyone ever, never talk to you about." And she said he wasn't the same after that. What did my dad see? We'll never know. Some people thought maybe an alien body. I don't know. I like to think perhaps it was part of a crashed ship or some piece of a spacecraft, some technology, because my dad was a genius and the technology would have interested him. Yeah. So my gut is that my dad saw some piece of an extraterrestrial craft. It would make sense to be in a vault in Fort Monmouth, New Jersey. And he never revealed anything about it. But Sheila, before he died, I really do wish I had asked him about that one more time. And I forgot until he died.
Yeah.
Right? So.
Yeah. So now, have you had any other encounters or seen any other type of craft?
I have. So that was the first one. And obviously that was very impactful in my life. That was 1970. Now we jump to 1998. At that point, I had been married and divorced, and I had two children that were 8 and 6 years old. My ex-wife and my kids moved out to the desert. I live in Beverly Hills. They moved out to Lancaster, California, which is the high desert out here. And I brought my son a telescope for his 8th birthday in 96, summer 96. So we were out in Lancaster one night looking at the stars. The sky is clear. There's no smog out there. So you can see the stars really beautifully. And we were looking through the telescope. And at one point, we saw from the far right-hand corner of the sky, it was the shape of an egg. It was very bright, off-white, off-yellow color. And it streaked across the entirety of the sky in a straight line as fast as you could imagine, but clear enough that I could see it was a craft. and it went from the right to the left side of the sky. Then it stopped for about 30 seconds, and then it reversed course, and it went all the way back to where the same exact path it came from. Now, when it first traveled right to left, I thought it was a satellite. I told my son, I said, look, here's a satellite, right? You would think that was a satellite or a meteor or a comet or something. But no, because if it stopped for 30 seconds in its place and then reversed course, nothing, what can do that? Is that a plane or a helicopter? It was way too high. What could possibly, satellite can't reverse course. So whatever that was, I am absolutely convinced was not of this world. Now, I will add that my ex-wife lived near Edwards Air Force Base at that time, and I've heard there were a lot of extraterrestrial craft being tested near Edwards Air Force Base. Now we come to the year 2007. 2007, I'm in LA at a bookstore, just killing time, waiting for a friend to see a movie. And I saw the paranormal aisle at a bookstore. And I had never noticed a paranormal aisle of books in my life, apparently. And I saw all these books about ETs and crafts and outer space and ghosts and poltergeists and Bigfoot and all these wonderful, fun, wonderful topics. And I said, wow, there's a whole universe of information here that I know absolutely nothing about. I know no things about. I hadn't remembered my dad's setting. Keep that in mind. So I bought 12. I remember I bought 12 books, as many as I could carry. I read them all at home, and I'm like, this is unbelievable. I can't believe this fantastic information I'm getting. So in 07, I joined MUFON. Are you familiar with MUFON?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, probably most of your people know the Mutual UFO Network, MUFON. I joined the LA chapter, 07. Are you familiar with the TV show Ancient Aliens?
Oh, sure. Mm-hmm.
On the History Channel. Okay,
right.
So the very first meeting that I went to for MUFON was Giorgio Tsoukalos with the crazy black hair.
Right.
He was the guest speaker at the first meeting I went to in 07. And he presented for an hour and a half ancient alien theory. And Sheila, when I tell you I started to cry, that's a true statement. I was crying. I was like, oh my God, they've been here from the dawn of mankind. There are cave drawings of aliens and crafts. There's petroglyphs carved into stone by the American Indians. There's, of course, the pyramids and the structures in Central and South America, Stonehenge. There are paintings in the Renaissance that have UFOs in the background of paintings. There are countless biblical references and stories in the Bible. When he was putting this together for me, I had tears in my eyes. And at the end of that, I went up to him, I said, Giorgio, I said, you just changed my view of my entire life. You just changed my whole worldview. And I shook his hand. And that's when I really started to immerse myself into the history of ufology. And then my last story is 1 year later, in 2008, again at a MUFON meeting, there was a gentleman named James Gilliland. Do you know who that is? Mm-hmm. So James Gilliland owns a ranch called ECETI, E-C-E-T-I, in Washington State at the base of Mount Adams. And in 08, he had a 3-day UFO seminar at his ranch. And I had a girlfriend, Barbara, at the time. So she and I spent the weekend at the ranch. And during the day, they had lectures and films and slideshows and documentaries and wonderful information. And at night, they built a bonfire. People played guitars and sang and danced around the bonfire. And we would look up in the sky because it's a world famous, ECETI Ranch is a world famous UFO hotspot. It's been for hundreds of years, apparently. The American Native Indians used to call Mount Adams the mountain that shines because UFO craft have been seen coming in and out of Mount Adams. So the first night, Friday night, we're looking in the sky for hours and hours, and your neck hurts after a while when you're looking up and there was nothing. Then the second night, hours looking in the sky, hoping, nothing. So the third and final night, my girlfriend Barbara and I were looking. I said, Barbara, let's go home and beat the traffic because nothing's going to happen. And no sooner did I say that, Sheila, than an enormous craft came out of nowhere. It was teardrop shaped, black teardrop shaped, just came out of nowhere, like directly above our heads. And underneath it was a brilliant emerald green light, the most beautiful emerald green color you've ever seen in your life, like the Wizard of Oz emerald green. And it turned on and off. It flashed on and off 3 or 4 times, the light, directly above us, as if to say, hello, we're here. We welcome you. We acknowledge you. We love you. Don't be afraid of us. We know you've been waiting for us. Hope you have a nice day. And it was right above us and clearly communicating. And then it took off. It just that it took off and then. And I started to cry, but my girlfriend cried, and people were crying and hugging and kissing and dancing. And to this day, that was in 2008. I still feel it here. I was profoundly touched by whatever that was. It was talking to us, and it was really profound. And then that's when you realize there's a lot in this world that we don't really know how to explain.
Right now. Why do you think that some people see the craft while others don't?
First of all, well, in this day and age, everyone, including my daughter, lives on their cell phone. If you're on your cell phone 24/7, like my daughter, who I love, you're not looking up, you're looking down at your phone, right? So number one, you have to look up to see a flying saucer. You got to look up and not down. Number two, you got to be, I was never the most open-minded person when I was younger. I had strong opinions, and I was pretty harsh, and I was critical of others. And a lot in my personal life has changed over the years. I'm very soft now, but you have to be open-minded and open-hearted. And not everything you see in the sky that's remarkable is a flying saucer from Pleiades. Okay, there are weather balloons and military craft we don't know about, and anomalies that we don't know. But it seems to me that of the tens of thousands of sightings every year around the world since 1947, when the Roswell crash happened, and that did happen, that was a true event, it truly happened. People on their deathbeds swore to their families that they cleaned up wreckage and they buried dead bodies. So Roswell absolutely happened. People go, oh, it was a weather balloon. No. That was the cover story. That was because our government's powerful, and people used to believe everything our government told us. Anyway, so to answer your question, you got to look up. You need to be open-hearted and open-minded. And if you see something remarkable, you should report it or call it in or try to take pictures. Everybody's camera can take video now. To try to record your experiences. But the 3 that I had were so uniquely different. The one with my dad was this huge metallic, heavy metal, looked like military. I think in retrospect, I believe that was a man-made craft using alien technology. I really, truly do. And that's why I think my dad knew what it was, because I think he may have been involved with that. The second one, the light from one side to the other, I don't have no idea. And then this third one was emotionally available aliens who were saying, hello, we're here and we love you. And so you have to, I don't know. I think some people are more intuitive. I think some more people are spiritual. I think if my mother was standing outside right now and saw a UFO, she'd say, oh, that's not an alien craft. That's that must be from Russia. I mean, there's no way my mother, who's 88, God bless her, there's no way she would know an alien craft if she saw it in front of her. There's no such thing. Enough with the aliens. Enough with the aliens. That's what my mother said.
Hey, now, a few moments ago, when you were sharing with us about the book and what was in there, you were talking about Team Tuckerman and how they had their list of what they thought the biggest problems were, and they said about doing things to affect change to make things better, including global warming. So I'm just wondering, what do you think our greatest problems are today?
That's a really great Great question. Well, I originally wrote the book in 2017, and I came up with every major problem I could think of, and then I actually Googled. I Googled what are mankind's major problems, and Sheila, my list matched Google. Like,
Oh, wow.
oh, I left out one. I left out a really good one: overpopulation, because according to scientists today, if we keep reproducing the way we, in 100 years, people in 100 years, they're going to be like walking around like there's not going to be a whole lot of room for all of us. So that was another problem I tackled. Well, the biggest problem in America, of course, is our political divide. I think we all know who we could blame that for, the orange clown. It's remarkable how one lunatic could do so much destruction to a country. Just amazes me, absolutely amazes me. But so political division, I don't know if that could be fixed at this point. He did so much damage to us. It's going to take 50 years till maybe we start to meet again. In the old days, Republicans and Democrats, they were civilized to each other. They didn't agree, but they didn't fight in the streets and shoot and kill each other and storm the Capitol building. They discussed and debated and did compromises. There are a lot of famous American politicians who met with the other side of the aisle, Ted Kennedy being one of them. And they said, okay, here's what I want, here's what you want, let's meet in the middle. And they did. And now it's either all this or it's all that. So that's the biggest problem in America. Then, of course, we have a little lunatic named Vladimir Putin. Well, that guy needs to be taken out tomorrow because he's a lunatic. So I'm amazed his people haven't taken him out already. What are they waiting for? One guy is ruining hundreds of thousands of lives for no apparent reason. But still, there's still famine. There's still a lack of clean water. We still have global warming. Look at the weather. Every year, the weather. I live in LA. It used to be the most beautiful place in the world. I've been here 43 years. This past March, it rained every single day. Every single day. I'd never in 43 years saw it rain in LA every single day. That's not normal. That's abnormal, or abby-normal, if you watch the movie Young Frankenstein. So political divide is big. Tyrants and dictators is big. But above that, we still have, global warming, famine, lack of clean water. Overpopulation is still happening. Guns. In my book, the aliens hypnotize people to give up their guns, and they do. People put their guns in mounds and bury them and have parties in the streets. So I think other than political division, which was happening in 2017, I'd say I nailed all the other big problems. If you read my book, you'll say, yeah, I think he did a good job.
Great, great. And then I do have one other question, and then we're going to open it up. I have Stone, who is watching all the chat for me. So if you have a question that you want to ask, or you can always raise the hand using your reactions button, and then you can always put your question in, and Stone can let us know. But I also I wanted to ask you what your thoughts are about an open disclosure.
Okay, that's a wonderful topic. Last month, I went to an event called Alien Con in Pasadena, and I met all the stars of Ancient Aliens. I met Giorgio for the third time. I hugged him. He remembered me, so I hugged him. I gave him a copy of my book, and he goes, "Oh, I can't wait to read it." I met Eric von Daniken. The father of ancient alien theory. I hugged him. I shook his hand. I said, "Eric, thank you for all you do." I gave him my book, Sheila. He goes, "Thanks. I haven't read this one yet." I go, "It just came out 3 days ago. Of course you haven't read it yet." I met Paul Hynek, the son of J. Allen Hynek. I met wonderful people, Jeremy Corbell, George Knapp, all kinds of people. At that event, they were talking about the UAPs that had been shot down over North America, right? Mm-hmm. Now, okay, and then I'll get back to that part in a second. And then a few weeks ago, I was at UFO Con in San Francisco, and there I met Stephen Bassett. Do you know Stephen Bassett?
I don't know him personally, but yes, I
You know who
know
he is.
Stephen Bassett.
He's
Yes.
he's one of the leaders of the Project Disclosure, and he gave a wonderful talk. And he, in his opinion, since 2017, when the New York Times ran the front page story about government admits there are UAPs, and if you remember that, it was the New York Times front page, and that's when the government released those 3 famous videos. He said since 2017, he believes we're getting closer and closer to our leaders providing disclosure to us. He has a hashtag for his project disclosure, hashtag months, not years. His hope is months, not years, instead of disclosure. So getting back to the 3 UAPs. Now, I've been very disturbed about the 3 UAPs that we shot down over North America, Feb 10, 11, 12. For those of you who might not know, the US military shot down unidentified objects 3 days in a row in February. First was over Alaska, the second was over Canada, the third was over Lake Huron. To this day, Sheila, none of those items have been shown, retrieved, explained. No details have been provided. Now, if you're an American fighter pilot, you have video on your plane. We all know that. They all have video cameras on there. But the pilots that shot down those 3 items videotaped those interactions. There's absolutely no question about it. That's number one. Number two, with our technology, I'm sure we retrieved all 3 of those debris, the debris from those 3 crashes. There's no doubt we didn't. Why? Because the China balloon, the week before, was the China balloon. A good magician does a trick with his right hand, but everyone's like, look, see what I'm doing with my right? His tricks with his left hand. Okay. Our American military, Biden and our military, China balloon, China balloon, China balloon. Okay, what's the China balloon? A man-made object, right? A man-made object by China. We all saw it on TV going over the country. We saw it be shot down. I saw it on CNN. They were fishing it out of the Atlantic Ocean. They can fish this thing out of the Atlantic Ocean. They can't fish out things from Alaska, Canada, or Lake Huron. Well, of course they can, and they have. I'm sure they have. So as far as disclosure goes, I was hoping that President Biden, when he tried to explain the 3, he went on TV and said, we shot down 3 things. Probably they were balloons. Probably we're not quite sure. Probably they were balloons, and you don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. Because the China balloon. So he's the magician. Look at my right hand. Don't look at my left hand. I just wrote a press release about myself that I'm issuing now this week. It says, Hollywood author demands President Biden and U.S. military to disclose details behind 3 recently shot down UAPs. I've been sending that out all over the world this past week. I want answers. I want people to say, look, these were not from this world. I really thought Biden was going to become the disclosure president. He went on TV. He said, well, the one over Alaska, we think was a balloon from Montana. No, it wasn't. No group ever claimed ownership of it. They've never explained any of these 3 things. One was the size of a car. One was shaped as a cylinder. I have quotes from military. They say we're quite confident we'll be able to get the debris. I'm sure we'll be able to capture the debris. They got the debris. These were not man-made objects. These were extraordinary objects. And I'm a big proponent of disclosure. I befriended Steve Bassett in San Francisco. He wants to hire me to be his publicist, believe it or not. So I'm hoping to get very much involved in Project Disclosure. But I tell my daughter, she's 33. She turned 33 on Monday this week. I said, I hope you live to see the day for disclosure. She goes, Dad, I hope you live to see the day.
Right.
I'll be 67 soon. So yeah, I hope it happens in my life.
Right. Now, are you going to Disclosure Fest in Vegas in November?
Wow. Is there such a thing?
Yes. Yeah, it's called Disclosure Fest.
I have to reach out to my buddy Steve Bassett, have him invite me. I
Yeah, I
honestly,
can. I'll send you. I'll send you the information and who you need to get a hold of, because I think you would really enjoy that.
I would absolutely enjoy that very
Yeah.
much. Yes, I've just since February, it angers me and it saddens me deeply. And I liked President Biden. The man's a human being. He's what a president at least should be, a human being, and he is a human. I was hoping he'd be the disclosure president, and he came so close. All he had to say was the three things we shot down. We're not quite sure what they were. They may possibly have not been man-made. We're not sure. Like, he gave a little bit of truth, and he didn't. I don't think the military allows any president to reveal fully. If there are clips of Clinton and Obama on the Jimmy Kimmel show, you can see them on YouTube. And Kimmel asked them to their face, tell us about UFOs and aliens. And both Clinton and Obama get very nervous and fidgety, and they make jokes, and they literally look, they turn their heads and look the other way. So there's a lot here that we've never been, it's never been revealed to us, and it's long past time, really.
Right. Right. Okay. All right. Well, I could sit here and talk to you all night. I've got 100 questions. So maybe we'll have another conversation. But what I'd like to do is, if there's anyone that has a question for Dan, or a question about his book, just go ahead and raise your hand with the reactions button so we can get your question answered.
Don't all raise your hands at once here.
That's right. That's right. All right.
Sheila, have you had sightings?
Oh, actually, I have had sightings. I've got, I've actually, in my dream state, I've been on minicraft, and I've had encounters. I've had mantis in my home, and I've heard the clicking as they walk down the hall, and when they open the door, and when they look in. And at first I thought maybe I was dreaming, so I sat up in bed, and the door opened a little further, and they stuck their head in. That was about it with them. I have some phenomenal craft photography that I've taken. And I was laughing with someone that, I've taken so many photographs of craft that I've kind of stopped taking them, because they're everywhere. And that's why I can't understand why more people are not talking about this, because they're everywhere. And I was talking to someone the other day, and I wanted to ask you about this, and then I promise I'll stop dominating the conversation here. But I was talking to someone in Canada, and they were telling me that Canada is working on becoming the first country to acknowledge the presence of extraterrestrials and craft. And I was given the names of certain people who are now working on those committees. And I was wondering if you've heard anything about that.
Well, I know Biden and Trudeau coordinated the second shoot down. The first was Alaska, the second was Lake Huron, but the third was Lake Huron. The second one was over Canada, the Yukon in Canada. Biden and Trudeau coordinated that together. Look, Trudeau's a young guy, right? Young, hip guy. He probably knows what was shot down. His people would have recovered that second one.
Mm-hmm.
If he knows, now here's the thing, the rumor, the theory, however you want to look at it, the dark powers that be in the American government, I think they're sort of the descendants of Majestic 12. You've probably heard of Majestic 12. For those of you who don't know, in 1947, Roswell happened. President Truman created something called Majestic 12, the top military and scientific leaders in America at the time. Their mandate was to create protocols by which to do three things: recover crashed craft, recover aliens dead or alive, and to create disinformation campaigns. Let's say, Sheila, let's say you or I in 1947 saw a flying saucer at our farm in Nebraska. Well, the Majestic 12 guys would come to our house and say, you never saw it. It didn't happen. It was a weather balloon. If you tell anyone, we'll kill you. We'll bury your children in the sand. You'll never see them again. People like my father worked for the government 45 years, top secret. My father lived for his pension. He couldn't wait to turn 65 to get his pension. People in the military and civilians who work for the military, you're not going to reveal top secret information to your wife, your kids, or your best friend, because there goes your not only there's your pension, you're going into jail, or your families are going to be hurt or injured or killed. So I would love it if Trudeau was the guy. I think it takes someone, if I can say the word balls, if Trudeau has the balls to do it, I would love to see it be a young leader. I think that would be wonderful.
Yeah, yeah. There's so much out there. There's so much that we don't know, that we're just barely scratching the surface of. And the fact that the Majestic 12 was put into place today, I see that playing out in your hometown there in Hollywood, with a lot of disinformation coming from the movie industry. And maybe it's not intended that way, but some people could look and say, that's very, very interesting.
Well, the people that have been buying my book that I've met in person have told me, wow, a book about benevolent aliens. What a refreshing change that is. Why? Okay, there's after War of the Worlds, right? Independence Day. There's a famous Twilight Zone episode called To Serve Man, in which aliens come to Earth to eat people, eat them. In most of our movies, and there are two exceptions I'll get to in a second, but in most movies, aliens come to kill us, destroy the Earth, or to eat us. Two exceptions, both by the same man, a guy I've met a few years ago named Steven Spielberg. E.T, benevolent, kind little guy, right? Close Encounters, my favorite movie of all time. I've seen it 65 times, Close Encounters. Every time I see it, it makes me cry. I watched it the other night, I cried. Every single time I've seen that movie, I cried. The little aliens at the end, they take Richard Dreyfuss on board. Benevolent aliens. Other than Spielberg, every other story, they're coming to kill us and eat us. So when I wrote this book, I'm like, I'm not going to have them come and kill us and eat us. I'm going to have them be kind, nice, beautiful. In my mind, they look like Brad Pitt and Blake Lively, by the way. In the movie, my aliens are Brad Pitt and Blake Lively, the two most beautiful blonde people on planet Earth. So, why can't they be kind? Why can't they be help us? Why can't they be nice? But also, Sheila, there's rumors that some government people have snuck Spielberg information for his films. There's a great story when Steven showed E.T. to President Reagan at the White House. I don't know if you've ever heard the story. So Spielberg showed E.T. at the White House to President Reagan. At the end of the movie, Reagan goes to Steven. He goes, "You'll never know how close you are to the truth." Reagan knew. Reagan knew. Dick Cheney knew. George Bush Sr. knew. Some of our leaders knew. Others would have never been read into the conversation.
All right. So, Bubba G, you have a story that you wanted to share really quickly? Okay, you'll need to come off mute.
How about me?
Yes, that's what I said.
Oh, you called on me?
I did.
Oh, well, that's wonderful.
You're on mute again. You're on mute again. You're on mute.
I think he disappeared.
Now I'm not on mute.
No, okay. Now you're not. Okay.
You're the host, and the lady. I'm sorry, the man that's talking about the UFOs. His first name, please.
Dan.
Dan?
I'm Dan.
Dan, yeah, I thought it was Dan. Dan, I've got so much to say, but I know we have just a little bit of time. I was first, I call it inducted. I was never abducted. I was inducted.
Okay.
And it was kind of scary because when they first approached me, I thought they were snatching my body, because the only thing I knew about UFOs was presented in the 50s, right? When the body snatchers came, and it was a scary movie. But like Sheila said, that's misinformation. They need to redo that movie. And at the end, they need to rescue us from planet Earth, because planet Earth is not going to be able to sustain life for humans. And we're going to have to get out of here. So when they originally contacted me, they said they wanted me. And I couldn't relate to that, you know. What do you mean you want me? And they said, well, I wasn't doing such a good job. And that if I cooperated with them, we could get more done. And I was working for the government at the time. And so it took me about 6 months before I finally surrendered. And I gave in to them. And if you'd like, I can give you a couple of minutes of how it all went down. You know,
It's
how
up
it
to,
is
up
to
to,
speak with
up to
E.T.
Sheila. It's up to Sheila.
You want to hear
Yeah,
it?
let's I want to make sure everyone has time, and we're already at the top of the hour. So if you can just share super briefly.
Yeah, I'll be as quick as I can. I've been wanting to tell this story for a long time, so here we go. They said to me that they had been with me. I asked them how long they'd known about me, you know, how long they were been trying to contact or, like I say, recruit me. And they said before I was born, which is a real surprise. You know, they said they'd been with me before I was born. And then they said that they made me for this purpose, that all the stuff that I had done up to that point was because I had a mission. And they told me my mission was to prepare for them to come, that I was supposed to get somehow involved with the government and get the government to stand down so that they could come to the planet and rescue us.
Could I ask what you did for the government? What was your role in the government?
Well, the most important thing I ever did was the cruise missile. I was in charge of the communications equipment on Santa Cruz Island between 72 and 74. Well, not the whole time. I was on San Nicolas Island and Laguna Peak and Point Magoo. I've been in that business ever since 1961. I've been a missile technician.
I wonder if you crossed paths with my dad. My dad designed missiles. That'd be funny. He used to come out to he came out to California to test them all for years and years and years.
You know, I don't recall meeting too many people, but we're getting off the track here. I did see a UFO. I don't think it was from aliens. I think it might have been from us, because I wasn't living too far from Area 51. Okay. And it appeared over my neighbor's yard. It was only about 100 yards up and maybe 200 yards away from me. So I had a really close look at it, and it was quiet and it was stealth. You really couldn't tell much about it, except that it had a bunch of red lights and they were flickering all over the place. Like if you imagine what it's like to look at popcorn when it's popping, you never know when the next one's coming. Well, right. That's how it was. It wasn't like that Close Encounters, you know, like do. It was just pow, you know, chick all over the place. I don't know why they were doing those red lights. They were very intense, very small, but very bright. And then it drifted away. It didn't shoot off really fast. It drifted away like a balloon. And I watched it for about 5 minutes. I don't know. I kind of thought maybe they were just giving me a rehearsal. Now, what are we going to do when they come? Because I've been telling people ever since 1968 that they're coming for us. And they're coming to get us away from this toxic environment. And hopefully they're going to bring us back. I don't know that they're taking us. Go ahead.
If you read my book, they come, they're peaceful and kind. They don't take us off planet. They improve the planet for us because they care about us and they helped create us. So if you're open-minded, I think you would enjoy my book.
I'll do it. And I'm going to say one more thing. I'm no longer a human. Before I met them, I was a human. And after that, I'm not. And I asked them, I said, remember, how long have you been with me? And they said, from before you were born. And I said, are you my soul? Because that's the only language I know. And they said, yes. So at that point, I believe that we are all extraterrestrial, each and every one of us, and that what we call a soul is truly who we are. And this flesh is just a vehicle that we use to travel around so that we can speak with each other. By the way, Sheila, I love you so much. Thank you for this time, and let's get more of this out there for everybody. Okay.
Oh, thank you so much.
That's great.
And thanks for sharing. Thanks for sharing your story. Susie, you have your hand up.
Yeah, what a fascinating life you've lived. I lived in Los Angeles, and I was secretary at first for a lot of entertainment attorneys, and I met a bunch of famous people, but I wasn't that impressed. Well, my question is, in the the movie stars and stuff like that, is there a disclosure? I mean, a lot of famous people are using their fame to teach and to bring consciousness to the planet. But I was wondering if anybody there, is there a disclosure thing where some of them might start speaking about their experiences, because you would have access to them. And it just seems like some of these people with a lot of power, they think they're powerful because they're so famous and pretty and all that. But I think God moved God, for lack of a better word, moved them into a position to where they could be very beneficial to the planet. Are you aware of any of those disclosure kind of guys happening?
No, but when you were talking, Susie, you gave me such a remarkably great idea. If someone, and maybe me, but if someone were to reach out to Hollywood proper, to the Tom Hankses, right? And the people that we all love and respect, the Brad Pitts and the George Clooney's, maybe not some of the lunatic fringe, and say, hey, we're doing a study of celebrities and UFO sightings and extraterrestrial encounters. Would any of you be brave? And I love this idea.
Yeah.
Here's the problem. If Tom Hanks went on CBS tomorrow and said, I was abducted when I was 7 from the woods in New Jersey, a lot of people are going to go, oh, poor Tom Hanks, he's lost his mind, right?
Yeah.
People in Hollywood are extremely protective of their reputation.
Well, that's why when you said people have to have balls, it takes a great deal of courage to come out, no matter who you are, but especially if you have a following, you're dependent on that. But I believe things are going to start happening to some of these people that are strong enough to where they can start speaking out. I mean, that they're going to have the courage to do that.
I think that would speed along disclosure. If Tom Hanks or the biggest stars in the world, Nicole Kidman, said, it sounds kind of crazy, but I've been seeing flying saucers since my whole life, and I didn't want people to think I'm nuts, but I swear to God, I've been seeing these. It would take a lot of celebrities, a lot of balls, but I love that idea, Susie. I think that's
Me too.
Great.
Well, we've all had to take a fall if we were conscious, probably many, 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 many falls. And I just think it would behoove them to love their planet a little bit more than their, what they've made themselves into. But yeah, I love your story. I think more power to you. Keep going, keep writing. I think you're awesome. Thank you so much.
Very sweet. You're my biggest fan. Thank you very much.
Dan, I think Susie just gave you an idea for your next project.
It's a great idea. I could put an ad for those of you who know Hollywood, Susie, you know this. There's Variety. Variety is the magazine that covers Hollywood. If I were to take a full page ad of Variety and say to all celebrities, producers, directors, if you've ever seen UFOs or had extraterrestrial encounters, I'm writing a new book. Please let me know. I would be interested to see who responded. That would really be something. Great
Beautiful.
idea. Great idea.
You could even make it like anonymous, so they at first they didn't have to give their name so that they'd feel comfortable, like AA, you know. Come and show us your stories, and then eventually they'll, if they enough of them come forth, there's got to be courage. I mean, my God, what most of us have gone through to still be here on the planet during this time is huge. And so I would think that some of our movie stars are gonna, you know, and people in positions can start being more vocal. So, Dan, you go for it. I'll back you 100%.
Remember when Ellen DeGeneres said, "Yeah, I'm gay"?
Yep.
Remember how huge that was? Huge.
Yes.
And after that, a celebrity said, "You know what? If Ellen can do it, I can do that."
Yes.
So
Yes.
we should do the same thing with UFOs and ETs. I think
Yes.
that's
Yes. Yes.
that might be my 5th book. I've actually been thinking about my 5th book. That might be it.
Okay. Well, dedicate a little bit of it to me. Okay.
I'm gonna have to.
I'm joking. I'm joking. I love you, Dan. I think you're awesome. Keep going.
Thank you very much.
Great. That was awesome. So does anyone else have any question or comment? Okay. So Dan, this has been so fun having you on here. I've loved hearing about your book. So can you share again with everyone? First off, do you have a website, or how could people reach out to you? And if you can share once more where people can purchase your book.
Sure. Okay. So my book is called After They Came, and it is on Amazon. It's available Kindle or print, paperback print. If you want to reach me, Dan Harary, author, my name, Dan Harary, author, AUTHOR.com. It has my biography in there. It has all my pictures of me with Jerry Seinfeld and Steven Spielberg and Anne Margaret and all the famous people I've met. And it talks about all my books. This is my 3rd book. My next book, Sheila, comes out in January, and that's called My Paranormal Life. And I'm going to come back to you on that one. My paranormal. That's about ghosts and poltergeists. And when I was 5 years old, a gargoyle saved my life. I died. I fell off a sign and died, and a gargoyle saved my life.
Okay. All right. Wait a minute. We can't end the show. You've got to tell us this story.
My mother thinks it was a dream. When I was 5, in suburban New Jersey, across the street were 2 little girls that I was friends with. They were older than me, and they used to teach me how to climb trees. So we used to climb trees. I remember very distinctly. So I was 5 years old, 1961. And one day we went down a block down from my house, and there was a big billboard sign there for a drugstore that was around the corner. We went behind the sign and into the wooden lattice structure of this enormous billboard sign. And me and these 2 little girls, probably 7 and 9, climbed up inside the lattice woodwork of this big sign. And we climbed and climbed and climbed. And I'm telling you, I had to be up at least 12 to 18 feet, maybe higher. And I fell backwards off. I remember clearly, I lost my grip and I fell backwards. I floated like in slow motion, looking up at the sky. I fell through the sky. The next thing I remember, I woke up on the couch of a neighbor's house. This was a house down the street from my mother's house. I'd never been in this house in my life. No one was home. No one was there. I was 5 on a couch. I woke up in this room in the strange house. As I sat up on the couch, here's the best part of the story. And people think I'm batshit crazy on this one. But when I sat up on the couch, I looked at the front door, and I'm telling you, there was a 6 or 7 foot creature there, the color of white chocolate. You know, like how white chocolate is sort of off-white?
Yeah.
Chalky color. It was a creature. It was not a person. It was a creature. It had stumps on its shoulders. I imagine that's where its wings had been, because there were not wings, but there were like these stumps. It looked like the wings had been cut off. And it turned its head to look at me, and it snorted. It snorted at me like, yeah, I saved you, but I didn't want to. That's the attitude it gave me. And then it left. I've recently looked up what that could have been. It was a gargoyle. It was a gargoyle. Saved my life. But something happened. I fell off a sign. I woke up somewhere else. No one else was there. and there was a gargoyle there. So he protected me. I wish I could say thank you because I wouldn't have had a life without that guy.
That's amazing. I love that story.
So that's
So-
that's in my book, January, called My
Okay.
Paranormal Life.
Well, we'll definitely get you back after you publish that one. And I'll send the information to you. Adrian's the guy you need to get a hold of for Disclosure Fest.
Oh, great.
Yeah, because you may want to speak there. So that'll be awesome.
Okay,
And
thank you.
speaking of awesome, thanks, Dan. You've been an awesome guest. My little dog, Willow, I'm going to bring up. He's dying to get in on everything to say hello to everybody, little rotten thing. But I'd love to have you back again. That was great. And I want to thank everyone that was here. But before we actually officially go, do you have any final comments that you would like to leave with people?
I think I said earlier, and this certainly happened for me when I saw the third UFO with the green light, and I felt this warm, wonderful, loving feeling. Since that time, I've become so much more spiritual. My dreams have become more vivid. I've become much more tolerant. I'll give you an example. I always sort of cringed about gay people. Growing up where I'm from, if someone was gay, you didn't even talk to them. And since then, I have friends that are gay and cross-dressers and queer and lesbian, whatever. And I think they're the most wonderful people that I've ever met. They're the most creative, warm, and sincere people I've ever met. It opened my heart and my mind. And I really think if you look less at your phone and more up at the sky, or just go out in nature and take a walk and look up and tell the universe, thank you for my children. Thank you for my parents. My mother's still alive. It's amazing. She's 88. I can't believe she's still alive. My dad, I think about it. I send thoughts up to my dad all the time. Deciding I had made me a spiritual person. And I think if anyone's fortunate enough to have that, perhaps that'll happen for you as well. But you have to be open-minded and stop looking at your phone all the time and just take a walk. Go outside and look up and say, thank you, God, for all that I have in my life.
Beautiful. Well, thank you so much for that. I totally agree. There's a lot going on up there. We just have to take the time to check it out.
Absolutely.
So thanks again for being here. You have been an awesome guest. Loved having you. I've loved having all the comments tonight. Thank you all for sharing your stories. Thank you for being here live in the audience. So whether you're live with us or whether you're watching us on replay, thank you so much. Sending you all very warm wishes, much love, and until we're back together again, namaste. So good
Namaste.
evening, good night, much love.
Bye
Bye-bye.
bye,
Thank
everybody.
you, Sheila. It was
Yeah.
good. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Sheila.
Bye.
Thank you. Thank you.